Hello, and welcome to our event with Jaime Lynn Hendricks. I'm Luisa Smith, the buying director for Book Passage and the editor-in-chief of Scarlet. And I would like to start by thanking you all for tuning in today. We know that you have a lot of options for online events these days, and we truly appreciate you choosing to attend ours. Book Passage has a lively event schedule, hosting great authors not only online, but also in our 2 stores. So I hope you will take a moment after today's event to take a look at our events calendar located on our website. If you love great suspense fiction, and since you're here today, I suspect you do, you won't want to miss our upcoming event with Daniel Silva on July 22nd. Or if you are more than just interested in reading suspense fiction, but also have hopes of writing a mystery or suspense novel one day, make sure you check out our annual Mystery Writers Conference happening on August 5th through 7th. Book Passage is able to offer so many wonderful events in no small part due to the support of our customers, both near and far. So thank you. One of the best parts of these live events is that you can ask your questions of the author. In fact, questions from the audience is often the part of these events that they love the best. So please don't be shy. Go ahead and type your questions in the chat, and we will hopefully get to as many as possible towards the end of the conversation. I also want to alert you to the fact that we will be posting a link to Jamie's book in the chat for those of you who wish to make a purchase. And you're going to want to pick up a copy if you're looking for a delightfully dark and dishy suspense novel. After today's conversation, you will see why. Jaime Lynn Hendricks has over 20 years of experience in print media and marketing. Her debut novel, Finding Tessa, was voted one of the best debuts of 2021 by Suspense Magazine. Now she returns with her new novel, It Could Be Anyone, which is already getting wonderful praise from esteemed suspense novelists, including being called a fun, wicked, and twisty tale by best-selling author Mary Kubica, who says it starts with a bang and never lets up. I couldn't say it better than that. So please welcome a lady I have the great joy to work with, Jaime Lynn Hendricks.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me, Luisa.
Oh, it's such a thrill to have you here. I'm so excited to finally be able to go out and talk about your wonderful new book. And before we begin, since the book is really freshly out and very few people have had a chance to read it yet, I was hoping that you could give us just a little description of what the story is this time.
Okay, it starts out where they thought that they were going to a fun destination wedding with palm trees and sun, but it turns out that the entire bridal party wanted the groom dead. So the groom in question, Trevor Vaughn, is a horrible human being, as you come to find out. Not giving any spoilers here. He drops dead halfway through page 1, and then you have to try to kind of discover which one of the bridal party wanted him dead the most, because it turns out they all had a deep, dark secret, and he found out what they were, and he was blackmailing all of them to make sure that his fiance married him, because he had his own nefarious reasons for wanting into her family, and he would stop at nothing to make sure that he got what he wanted. And apparently somebody in the bridal party wouldn't stop until they got what they wanted either, which was a dead Trevor Vaughn.
Well, I love this book, you know that. But one of the things I love about your writing in general is that there's no character that doesn't have multiple sides, that doesn't have a dark side, that doesn't, have things that make them slightly villainous or, or better than you expect. That they have all this sort of duplicity and these wonderful villains and dark things that they've done. What is it about those types of characters that draw you to writing these books?
Well, I think that's the hallmark of writing thrillers, is that you're supposed to not know who to trust. Everyone should have a secret, and figuring it out is really the fun part for me about reading and writing thrillers. I love when something completely flips me, when I'm reading a book and I just get wowed. That, to me, as a writer, is something I constantly aspire to. So when I read it, I appreciate it. So then I try to think of ways to do that to my own readers. I try to think of something that's going to completely flip them on their head and make them say, oh my God, how, why, and make them kind of question everything that they already know about the characters that they thought they knew, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. And this one, it's not just like one big secret. It's like
Many.
5, 10, sorry, like
5, 6,
multiple. Yeah,
7.
they you keep getting twisted. Was it difficult keeping straight all the different twists that you were putting in there? How do you keep that straight when you're writing a book like this?
Well, I'm what they call a pantser. There's plotters and there's pantsers. So I am a pantser. So when I wrote this book, I just wrote chapter 1 with 5 characters with the questions that once Trevor died, they were kind of got together and said, oh my God, what happened? What happened? I just knew I wanted to start it off with a shocking moment. So I did that. And then I knew that everybody was going to have a secret. I did not know what they were going to be. So I wanted to kind of differentiate all of my characters and let them talk to me and let them tell me what would be the worst thing for them. So that's why I had Ethan and Emma, who was a happily married couple, on surface. And then there was Dutch, who was the playboy. And then Allie, who was the rich socialite girl, the divorcee. And then V, who was the good guy. So I made them really all completely separate. And as I went on with their stories, I still did not know what their secrets were going to be. But as their characters developed with me, I kind of I started to figure out what would hurt them the most. So I put their secrets. Well, they kind of told me what their secrets were. I said, this is going to hurt this one the most. This is going to hurt this one the most. And I just kept on building from there. And I think it was easier that way because I didn't box them into something in the beginning. And then if it didn't work, it would just come off as not authentic to their voice. So I liked that it kind of developed as it went on.
Wow. I've never known that. For those of you in the audience who don't know, I'm actually Jaime Lynn's editor. So I've seen this book, oh gosh.
Hundreds of times,
many iterations. I had no idea that's how you started, that you started with knowing you wanted a shocking thing. The shocking thing was going to be a man dropping dead at his own wedding.
Yes.
And that there were going to be a certain number of characters and they all were going to have a secret. And that was all that you started with when you started this? That's amazing. Yes. And then and that you started with their general personality traits and then the flip. What would be the darkest thing on the flip side of that? I love that.
What the darkest secret?
No, when they're like, let's say, I don't want to give anything away. So one character is what would be for the character who was the family man, what would be something that would be terrible for him? Yes. I love that that's how you constructed it, but you still had to, even after that, it goes from different points of view. And yes. I think that's multiple points of view has to be one of the most difficult things to write, not just because you're writing, and actually, I don't know that you can tell me this more than, this is just my take on it, more than just being able to do their different points of view. It's being able to keep it distinct and keep a plot moving forward, keeping it propulsive when you're shifting points of view, I think is one of the most difficult things. And I know it's something that you worked on. You did a beautiful job of it. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like trying to make that work?
Yes, I love to read and write multiple points of view. I like trying to figure out the characters when one is talking about one and then you hear a different side completely and you get in a different character's head. So what you think isn't what you actually know. Mm-hmm. And that I like. What I thought was a little bit easy about this one is the pace where I put it, because it starts out with one person's point of view. And then it's the same, and that's their chapter, and it tells everything that goes on. And then it is the continuation of that exact moment from somebody else. And it just, you start to see that how when they're all together in the same situation, how they see things differently and how they're worried about different things. And I thought that was easy to move the plot forward because it didn't, I don't think it made like a stagnant spot where it's like something happens and then you switch the scene and then it's something completely different and then it's a day later and then it's a day after that. So this whole thing happened in 2 days, the entire book. But if I feel like if you miss huge chunks of time, that I start to wonder what they were doing during those huge chunks of time. So I try to keep mine like tight knit. Like Finding Tessa, the whole thing took place over actually like 5 days. This one takes place over 2 days, and my book coming out next year takes place over 8 hours. So I kind of just like to keep things tighter in a smaller amount of just I think I like to keep my plot concise enough that I can get it all out quickly.
I love that. I love that you're going to keep the timeline tight and the characters moving, pow, pow, pow. It hit every single one. Now, were these all the same characters from when you first wrote this book? Were there characters that you took out? Was there characters that changed significantly?
There were two backstories changed from when I went through this with my agent to the time you got it. 2 of the characters' backstories changed. And then I think you added a character during our edits. Yeah. So that was the only character that got added, which really was just a brilliant way to show Trevor's threats being real. So I think that was brilliant the way that you saw that in advance. But other than that, it was pretty much how I wrote it.
Wow. And were there characters that were easier to write or harder to write?
Yes. The really evil ones were the easiest to write. Well, you and I have had this discussion. I do like nasty characters. I like unlikable characters. I like characters that just, kind of selfish with something to lose, and they kind of only look out for themselves. I find that delicious to write.
I find it delicious to read. They are my favorite characters. Yes. Are always the nastiest characters on the page. Yes. So it was a lot of fun reading this one. Now, this is, while it's your second novel out, you actually you've written a number of manuscripts that we haven't seen, and this book was written before Finding Tessa.
Yes, it was.
So did it change? Because we went back after Finding Tessa. Did the experience of going through the whole process of Finding Tessa change how you saw this book and then approached this book?
Yes, solely because this is the book that snagged my agent. So I thought it was good enough at least to get an agent at that point. It did not sell on sub originally. It was a book that was very much like this one ended up coming to market while we were shopping it on sub, which is weird how, I wrote this before that other book even, hit the shelves, and they do have a similar tone. So while that one was getting all the attention, this one was being told it's too much like the other one. So I wrote Finding Tessa while I was waiting. And that one, as you know, sold because you bought it. But I think going through this one second, when I was going through it again before we officially had it submitted, I was kind of looking at it where I had already had a professional editor go through one of my manuscripts, and I knew what needed to be changed before it was officially submitted, because I had gone through not only just the agent stuff, I had gone through the real editor stuff. So I found this one kind of easier to edit. I mean, I'm fast. I'll just go through stuff like 1, 2, 3. But this one was, even though we did more rounds on this one, I think it was an easier edit because there was so much more I had to change in this book, but it wasn't really that hard because I kind of knew what to expect from you already. And I loved that. I thought that really helped me with this one.
That's really interesting. Do you think about that now when you're writing? Like,
Absolutely.
you hear me? I haunt you.
Absolutely. I hear, but it's great because now I hear my critique partners. I have like, my core like group of critique partners, and I know what they're all good at something different, which is great because I know what one of them is going to complain about. I know what another one is going to complain about, but I like that because then it's tell me what is wrong. I mean, between all four of them having an expert opinion on one's good at plot, one's good at grammar, one's good at pacing. It's just it's better for me to have all of them come at me at once, which I love. So by the time I'm done with a manuscript, it's kind of clean anyway. But then I do bunch of rounds of my own edits. But I do have in the back of my head, my agent, because I always, she always reads them first, and I kind of know what she likes and what she doesn't like, and I know what you like and I know what you don't like, but all of my manuscripts are so different that I wouldn't be able to really pinpoint something that you would or wouldn't like. But if you don't like it, come at me. I've got a tough skin.
You always say that. You actually, you are very fast, and you always are like, yeah, let's try that. I think it's a wonderful, it's an unusual and wonderful trait to be able to take in advice and really be able to make it your own, like change it quickly without being like, but I love this sentence, because it can be the best sentence in the world, or it could be a wonderful thing. It just doesn't work. Yeah, kill your darlings. You got to be able to do that. If you can't, it's hard to progress. And it's hard to progress quickly. And you've always been very good about being like, okay, let's see if this works. Let's see if that works.
That's another thing with, publishing. Well, not before publishing, when you're writing a manuscript and you're querying for an agent, you get kicked in the teeth multiple times. So, I kind of got a really thick skin for, years and years of querying manuscript after manuscript after manuscript. So I kind of don't even care anymore. If you want to change something, you're like, I don't like this. This is bad. Okay, it probably is bad. Let's get rid of it then. Let's change it. Let's make it right.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm very easygoing like that. I don't get stuck on things.
And you have a background in print media and marketing. And I mean, you understand how important it is to get things polished and right, and how to take criticism professionally and turn it into something. So I think that's a really unique trait. A lot of people don't have that experience when they start writing.
Right. I got kicked in the teeth in my old job too.
That's okay. And this book takes place in your first Finding Tessa takes place in New Jersey. I know you're from New Jersey. This book takes place in Miami, which is a place that you spend a lot of time. In Florida, you spend a lot of time.
Well, I actually
maybe not Miami.
No, I spend my time in Tierra Verde and St. Petersburg, which is the West Coast.
Okay.
And I love, that's my favorite place. I love it there. But I've also been to Miami like 40 times because I know, insert joke here, I'm a huge Miami Dolphins fan. I really am though. It's very, I cry a lot. But I had gone down to Miami for probably, 20, 30 games. And I probably have been there, about 10 or 12 more times just for vacations, bachelorette parties. I had my own bachelorette party there. So I'm very familiar with Miami. So I thought I'd be able to write it like well, because I'm very familiar with it. And also I used that as the setting instead of St. Petersburg, because these people and Trevor and this story needed something flashier. Yeah. St. Petersburg, I love it. It's my favorite, but you can go out Saturday night in flip-flops and a tank top and nobody cares. In Miami, it's got to be the heels and the hair and the makeup and everything's got to be like extra. And I thought that fit this story better. Mm-hmm. So that's why I put this one in Miami. I also love, because it's a destination wedding,
they're all in the hotel together. And I've seen people refer to the book as being sort of Clue-like,
Yes.
and it does feel like that. It feels, in some ways, it's a throwback to some of the more old-fashioned mysteries where everybody's trapped in a house together, and
Yes.
who is the murderer here? And I really love that you had made it this destination, which created this scenario. Did you think about that when you were doing? Is that part of the reason it was a destination wedding?
Yes, because I didn't want any of them to be able to go home. I wanted them all trapped in there. I mean, not that they're trapped, but
Yeah.
if it was in New York where they all lived, then they'd have the rehearsal dinner, and they'd see their friend, and then they would go home, and then they'd go to the rehearsal dinner, they'd go home, and then they'd go to the wedding and they'd go home. And I didn't want them to be able to go home. They needed to all be there, because that's when they start figuring, everybody starts figuring things out, and it had to happen that way. I needed them to be stuck there. And then I also needed them to have a way to basically get the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah.
Just be like, okay, all this happened, and one of them is guilty, and they needed to get out. They need to get out.
It also makes it kind of like a pressure cooker.
Yes.
Because you're not in your comfortable home hiding out. You have to, and you're with these people all the time. Were there characters that were easier for you to write than others that you enjoyed particularly? Right. Not just like any one of those friends that you were like just really identified with or was found easy?
Oh, I don't identify with any of them. Oh God,
maybe
no.
Identify is the wrong idea, but just found that voice like you really enjoyed and was easier for you to write.
Yes, one of them. I told you before, the one who was the most evil.
Yeah.
That person, when you find out that person's secret, then it turns out there's another secret behind it, and then another secret behind that, and because of it, another secret had to happen. That person was the most fun to write, because I had fun with that person.
I have to tell you that when you said the person who's the most evil, I wasn't 100% sure who that was, because so now that you explained the multiple secrets thing, it just clicked for me who you were talking about.
Yeah,
but that's
because you know what? A lot. I mean, these are flawed characters. They're flawed characters. I did not write any of them to be perfect, and there's no, riding off into the sunset for any of them. They all did some pretty crappy things, but I look at one of them is just not that crappy, just bad. Another one, that's borders on illegal, and the other one kind of a bad mistake in youth. Another one, a very, very, very bad mistake in youth that has been trying to be atoned for. They were all kind of trying to atone for what they did, except for the evil person. That person actually did other things to try to make their evilness be covered up.
Right. I just think it's all, I love all the layers of the different secrets that they're hiding and stuff. And I think it's also interesting that for each of them, whether it's just a mistake from the youth or it's something really terrible, their reaction to hiding that secret, they all feel terrible and equally, maybe not the person, but they all, for them, it's a huge deal. There's for somebody, the youthful mistake maybe feels enormous to the person who made it, just as much as the actually illegal transgression to the person who did that. Maybe even that person doesn't feel quite as bad, and I think that's a really interesting thing.
That's what I thought was kind of a fun part also, is that as the secrets are being revealed, the reader might hate them, but as you kind of get to know them and see how they are with each other, as everything starts to come out, you start to realize like they really did try to atone for the bad thing that they did. And they really truly feel terrible. It wasn't like they just like, well, that happened and I'm moving on with my life. They really changed themselves to try to, come to terms with the horrible thing that they had done. again, except for the evil person who did something else evil and then something else evil to try to cover it all up. And man,
That's so
man,
funny.
a sequel. Oh, I've already got it in my head.
Oh, I love hearing that. Now tell us a little bit. You mentioned your writing group that you talk to about the books.
Oh, my
I'd love
critique
to,
partners.
yeah, I would love to know what is your writing practice? Like how do you go about doing these? It feels because you are so fast. You just sit in, like have a set number of hours a day that you put towards working, or
Yes. My process when I'm actively writing, which I am now, I am actively writing another one now. I I set myself up for 1,000 words a day, and that either takes me half an hour or it takes me 8 hours. It just really depends on the day, the muse, the night's sleep I had the night before. That could really be anything, or it could just be I'm kind of getting it. But I have one critique partner that I exchange with every time I finish a chapter. I give it to her, and then she comes back with the corrections. And the good thing about how I do this too, that critique partner that I work with daily, she knows all the secrets. I tell her how it's going to lay out, because that way she could tell me if I'm being too obvious in a certain spot, or not obvious enough, or if I'm just kind of going out of left field. So she knows all the secrets, and she sees it chapter by chapter as it happens.
wow.
I have two other ones that I do not tell them the secrets, and I give it to them like 10,000 chunks of 10,000 words at a time, just to see, so they could read the 10,000, like we would call it 8, 9, 10 chapters, and they could just see, make sure it's flowing, make sure it's going well. Do they have questions? What are the questions they have? What questions need to be cleared up? What questions need to be answered better? They also do corrections on, structure and grammar and tense and things that I just kind of mess up as I'm going. And then I do that over and over and over. And that way they get the secret, or they get to see the twists in real time. So if they say, yeah, I saw that one coming when you said this, or, oh my God, I had no idea. I thought you were going to do it a different way. I get a real-time reaction, and I need that, because if I'm not doing my twists correctly, that's a problem. Especially, thriller writer, it kind of, hinges on the twist. And then I have my last critique partner, once it's done and it's edited, she just does a read through. I could just send her like a PDF that she will read on her phone, and she'll read through the whole thing for pacing, structure, character development, etc., and just tell me, where I could improve, what I could do better, what she wants to see more of, what's perfect. So that's how I write a novel.
Wow. I love that you have so many people that have very specific editorial jobs.
Yes. But I do it for a lot of people too. I'm the same way. I mean, we all do it for each other. So that's why writers are the greatest people in the world.
And the most generous.
Yes.
Seriously.
Absolutely.
Actually, thriller or mystery writers, suspense novels, most generous writers out there.
Mm-hmm. Everybody's got to try to prop up the
amazing.
next person.
Yeah. Do you find helping other writers helps you when you're working on your own stuff, because you've seen the mistakes and the things that worked? Or
yeah, I do some editing on the side as a business for like queries and like opening pages. So I see hundreds of those a year.
wow.
So and it's good, because I know how to structure an opening, and I'm really good at query letters, which is, I mean, you see, I write my own flap. I need something like, I got it. Because it's kind of like a query letter. It kind of gives you the plot, the conflict, the character, and the goal and the stakes, which is everything a query letter should be. But I also read so much, so much. Yeah. And I know what's a good opening and what's not a good opening. If something is just like, no. Like for thrillers, you got to get in. You got to get in. You got to grab the person, and then you have to keep them there. So I like that. Well, one of my critique partners was a client of mine when I started this editing stuff. Mm-hmm. And then for whatever reason, she was like, hey, if you ever want me to look at anything, I'll look at some stuff. And I was like, okay. So that was when I was doing Tessa, and she had caught a couple of things that some of my other critique partners did not catch. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna be friends with her. And now we're like super tight. And we write, we help each other, she's my daily critique partner. So
Wow.
yeah, so we do our daily stuff together.
That's amazing. And I see that you have so many great authors on your wall in your library back there.
Oh yeah, these are my people.
Those are your people. I mean, are there certain authors that um, you read for inspiration? Are there writers that you avoid reading because it's so similar to the work that you're doing?
No, I don't avoid a writer unless, like, okay, just because I read a book that I did not like doesn't mean that, number one, that it's a bad book. It just means I didn't like it.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean that I don't like the author's style. It just means I didn't like that book. So I'm not a one and done person. I'll always, something else comes out by the author, I'll read it. If I don't like two of their books, I'm not reading any more of their stuff. It just means I don't like their style of writing. But that, I mean, I'm not going to, but I could name like two or three that I just will never read again. But these are two or three people are constantly on the New York Times bestseller lists, and everybody, there are so many people who love them, and thank God, because just because I don't doesn't mean that it's not good. I have auto buy authors that I'll buy anything, and I've loved everything, but I'll buy anything, like from Mary Kubica, Michelle Campbell, and now Ashley Winstead. I am obsessed. I'm obsessed with Ashley Winstead. I mean, so I will buy anything from these authors. And I know, because I've already read everything they put out, and I loved everything they put out. So that's why it's like, as soon as I hear a new one's coming, I have alerts in my phone. Make sure you start to, like, you order it, and when pre-orders come out, and I'm good like that.
Wow, that's so great. And now you were just at Thriller Fest. Did you get to meet any of the
Yes,
authors?
I got to meet Ashley. I was so excited. Michelle and Mary were not there, but I got to meet a lot, which was a great part, was my 2021 debut group. We have like a Facebook group, like a closed Facebook group, and we all, just so we could all talk to each other freely, and we give each other advice, and we, talk about our accomplishments. We talk about the things that are driving us crazy about publishing in general. And a lot of them were there. So it was great to meet a lot of the group in person finally.
These are people that had thrillers out, their debut thrillers in 2021.
That's the 2021 debut group. And we couldn't have a Thriller Fest last year because of, the world ended a year before that. And so and a lot of people still weren't doing in-person things. And plus everybody's all over the country. So it was nice just to have everybody in one place. And there were a lot of them there. So that was a plus. That was a plus to just finally, after commiserating and celebrating and everything for over a year, because I think the group came together probably sometime in 2020, because we were all coming out in 2021. So it was 2 years of kind of hanging out with these people, and never really hanging out with them until, you see them at the bar and you clink glasses, and then you take pictures together, and it was wonderful.
That is so wonderful. And you guys did come out. It's such a strange time. Not being able to do events in person was huge. But you guys all, I felt like, were incredibly resilient and pivoted so gracefully to doing online promotions and online events. I know it's something you really think about.
Yes.
I think out of all my authors, you think about the online piece the most, or the kinds of alternate promotions you could be doing. Was that fun to try to come up with things like that? Or
it's hard. It's easier now, because a lot of people still want to do things online. Well, here's the thing. People got used to doing things online. I don't think anybody ever would have had a book club over Zoom or something like that, whereas so many people now are doing that because everybody was doing everything over Zoom.
Right.
So coming out in and saying now it's different because now it's my second book, and I've already kind of gone through the whole thing, and I met a ton of bookstagrammers who like literally make the world go round. I met a bunch of authors. Everybody has been like helping me promote and all that. But as a debut in 2021, it was hard because not everybody was kind of used to doing everything, every single thing by Zoom. And I didn't really know anybody yet. Like some of the bookstagrammers who were like 5-star review and they loved it and keep me posted on anything else that you do. I would do giveaways with them. And I, you know, when I got my arcs and when I got my regular covers, I'd say, hey, do you want to sponsor a giveaway? I would ask other authors, do you like, you have a book coming out? Do you want to do a signed copy with me where, you know, we'll pick a winner and they'll get one of my signed arcs and a signed book that you have coming out. And I wasn't turned down. I wasn't turned down by anybody. I mean, I'm talking like Liv Constantine did one with me. Oh God, how many people? Michelle Campbell did one with me. Mary Kubica did one with me. So many like huge authors. When I went to them all timid and debut-y, I was like, can you please like give away a signed copy of your book to somebody to help me out? And every single person was like, absolutely yes. So that was one avenue I kind of hunted for, was to partner up with people to do things who already kind of had an established, you know, like just readers and readership, and knew more people. So that way they could advertise it too, saying, hey, I'm doing a giveaway with Jaime Lynn Hendricks, and you never heard of her, but you know, here's her book. And I think that just kind of got the word out too. It got my name out there a little bit. It got the word out. So that was one avenue I took. And then just kind of contacting the bookstagrammers after. And then over the course of the last year, since Finding Tessa came out, and until It Could Be Anyone just came out, I kind of got pretty tight with a lot of the bookstagrammers, which is why I put that murder box together. I wanted them to have something to, you know, they're good at doing promotion. They know how to do it better than I do. And I wanted them just to give them something. I wanted them to get the first copy. I wanted them to get the signed copies. I wanted them to get some little goodies and stuff because, you know, they've been helping me, and I appreciate that. And I think they don't know how much they mean to us, to authors in general. But any bookstagrammers watching, we all appreciate you.
Yeah, they've done an incredible job. And you, I loved watching you put together your special murder box for this, you know, this deadly wedding that was going to be happening. I just was super impressed. And I love, one of the things I liked about the Zoom events that we've been able to do is how you can have unusual pairings of people together. It's nice that you could be in New Jersey and I can be in California and we could do this together. That kind of, you know, that sort of event wouldn't happen if this whole world shift hadn't happened.
Right.
Which is really, you know, so hopefully going forward, we keep the good parts of this and then get you back in the store. I know you just did your first in-person event for the book, and that must have been pretty exciting to have. And meeting your readers in person. Yeah,
it's surreal being at the table with your pile of books and the pen. It's, you know, it's what you dream of, and then getting there is wow.
There's nothing like it. And I know that readers so appreciate the authors they love. I don't know that readers appreciate how much the authors appreciate their readers.
And I didn't get that until I started doing it, because I used to go anytime an author that I loved was doing a reading or a signing anywhere, you know, within 100 miles, I would always go because I was an aspiring writer and I read, you know, I like to read. So I would read their books. I would go, and then you chat with them, and they're all, like I said, so gracious. And I was the one who thought I was appreciative that these famous authors took time to talk to me. But now I am appreciative that readers come and want to talk to me.
Yeah.
So trust me, it's all on this side of the table, to quote Office Space.
It feels like the perfect segue you've given me here to go to some of the readers' questions. First of all, I do have to mention that our lovely Debbie Babbitt is in the audience, and she just wants to say
our
hello
lovely Debbie Babbitt.
Another wonderful author here. I'm gonna put my glasses to make sure that I read these correctly. But Ariel Smythe, I think, asks, I love how you describe your characters as all doing crappy things. So real. What are some of your sources or inspiration for character traits and development?
Oh boy. I'm really going to dig myself in this one. Some of the crappy things that my characters do are because of some of the people I know. And none of the bad stuff, none of the really, really bad stuff, but just some kind of backstabby or just nasty or something. Some of them I take from people that, well, actually from people that I knew. I don't surround myself with people like that anymore. I'm too old. But yeah, I had my, my teenage years, my 20s, when everybody just catty and, yeah. That was not, so some of those things I remember the way that some people acted, and I'm like, yeah, well, guess what? Now you're going to be a character in my book. But yeah, that I and then I take some things and I put it on steroids, and then I throw it down the steps, and then I put it in the Alice in Wonderland, eat me, drink me, it blows up, it shrinks down. I have to make it my own. Mm-hmm. So I do change things, but I do get some inspiration from some of my past, some people I knew, some, ex-boyfriends who did some crappy things. And, sometimes I just make, Trevor. God, thank God I never knew a Trevor. Wow. He was like the worst person in the world. But the reason I made Trevor the worst person in the world is because my characters were flawed and they did do bad things. And I didn't want the readers to hate them so much. So I made Trevor the really, really bad guy because I wanted the reader to understand and want the 5 characters to band together to defeat him, even though they all did something bad. What they did was not as bad as what he was doing.
Right.
Well, maybe the evil one.
But I mean, I think they're all pretty much likable. Like, you could see being friends with most of them.
Yeah, because what they did, nobody knew.
A secret, right?
What are your friends hiding?
When people do things now, or are there terrible situations, or you see somebody having a meltdown in public, do you ever think, oh, that would be good for a book?
Oh yeah. I mean, everybody, we talk about how we take notes, authors, how we take notes when we see stuff, because the age old, don't worry, I'll remember it. That literally never happens.
Yeah.
So we have to write stuff down. So when I see something that I say, oh, that could, I wonder, well, first I wonder what's really happening. Their meltdown, is it, are they crying because they're overreacting to something? Somebody, put the milk in the side of the refrigerator instead of on the top shelf, and, they're just an overreactor. Or, did their child fall on the playground and they have to, run over and get somewhere? Do they have a parent who's ill? Do they have, or are they like a crappy person doing something crappy to one of their friends? Yeah. So I kind of make it all up in my head because, I make things up for a living. So I make up a scenario in my head, and then I wonder who they're talking to, or I wonder if I see it from a distance, are they are they going off of each other fighting, or is one upset and one being resistant? And then I make up a story. And then sometimes, yes, I use a situation I've seen and I put it in one of the books.
Wow. I love all the little threads that you start pulling on it. whenever something truly terrible happens to me, and I'm not a writer, I always imagining an opening scene of the book being that, and for some reason it makes it feel kind of ridiculous, like so I can laugh at it. Like it gives me that distance. Like if a book opened with this, it would be ridiculous because it's just so terrible. And so, and then it just makes me feel better. And then I can kind of move on from it. That's the way I deal with horrible things. I have teenage children, so this happens a lot in my life at this point. And then there was another wonderful question here. Another one from Arrow. Any advice for other writers who might be entering the debut, love that word, stage?
The debut stage there's a few debut stages. There's debut, I am writing my very first manuscript, debut stage. And then there is, I just got my agent debut stage. And then there is, I just sold my manuscript to an editor debut stage. First one, where it's your first manuscript, get a thick skin. Just because your mom and your friends like it doesn't mean that it's going to be well received in a world that does not care about you. They care about business. That's the hardest thing to learn at first, because my first manuscript, forget it. I let my friends read it. They were like, this is going to be a movie and this is going to, oh my God, and this and that. And my mom loved it. My mom still, God, that was in 2014. My mom still talks about it. Why don't you just go back to that one? And I'm like, it was not publishable. But at the time I thought it was, all my friends thought it was and the more they told me it's so good, it just puffed me up. And then when I was submitting it to agents and it was getting rejected over and over and over, I was what probably 90% of first-time authors, I probably did what they did. They don't know what they're talking about. They need to understand the manuscript. They need to understand me. They don't know what they're doing. And I said this about, experts, people who actually do this for a living, because I thought I knew everything. And I didn't. So I had to trash that manuscript. And then I wrote another one, went through the same process, 100 rejections, trashed that one, went through it again. And then by the fourth one, I really started learning, like, okay, I really need to do this right. So I, got critique partners, and I started joining all those like Twitter pitch parties, and I tried to join pitch wars, and I met a lot of other people in my genre where we started exchanging pages, which is where a couple of my critique partners are now. Again, all published now, because we started out as babies together, and we all built each other up and did the right thing. So for my fourth manuscript, I kind of knew what I was doing wrong on the first three, because I had other eyes on it who weren't my friends. They were writers. They were people who were trying to do the same thing I was, and they were reading craft books, and they were giving their advice of what they heard from their other critique partners. So it ended up being kind of a collective effort. And that one I really thought was going to do something, but I'll get to that in a second. But I ended up trashing that one too. And then I wrote It Could Be Anyone. And that one was the first one where I really had a lot of friends in the business already. Some of my friends had already at that point gotten an agent and gotten published. So I got to take their advice from, like, basically what they were telling me their agent said or what their editor said. So I was getting kind of professional advice through the like third and fourth party. So that was a kind of a different debut experience, because I got to really write a good manuscript that attracted the attention of an agent. And then I got an agent with it. And then the third, like we had talked about, just, debut with an editor when your manuscript gets sold. First, yay, congratulations when that happens. Yay. Just keep working toward it, because if you do the right things and you understand the business part, it'll you'll go further that way when you understand that it's a business. And yes, I know my agent who, wants to make money off of me. That's her job. When she loves my manuscript, and when my wonderful, beautiful editor here, also loves my manuscript, but her job is also to make money off of me. It has to be that good. It has to be good that everybody wants to and can make money off of it. So just keep trying, keep improving, read the craft books. I like Save the Cat Writes a Novel. I like the 90-day novel. That's another good one. You gotta, meet other people, help them, let them help you. That's the right way to super duper spearhead getting a career out of writing.
Wow, that is such great advice, Jamie. That is
Thank
really
you.
great advice. No, really,
Well, we all go through it, so they don't have to.
I would just add on to that is that I think when people think about becoming a writer, they often think like, oh, if I could only finish my novel. And then it's, oh, if I can only get an agent, if I could only get the book, if only I could see it on the shelves, if only I could get a review in this publication. Like
Yep.
there's always a next thing.
I
So you
still
have to
have
be,
if only.
yeah, it just never ends. And then if only my next book. So you
Yeah.
kind of have
Yeah.
to go all in on each stage as you're doing it,
Yes.
because there's never a moment where you're like, done.
Right.
You never feel that way.
I'm sure
right?
Stephen King is still like, well, what if
Yeah.
people don't like my next book? Or
Oh, yeah.
what about what happens next?
Mhm.
Stephen King is probably like that.
Yeah.
So little old me, trust me, I'm going to keep, hitting myself over the head until I get to the next thing. And then I get to the next thing. And then I get to the next thing. And when you hit it, you're so happy, but then the dread immediately sets in. Where it's like, oh God, now I have to do the next thing.
Well, thank God you keep doing the next thing, Jamie. I can't tell you how much fun this has been today. Thank you so much for being here,
I'm
taking the
so
time to
happy
talk
to be
about
here.
this.
I'm
It's been
so happy.
wonderful. I could talk to you all day. And thank you to everybody in the audience for tuning in. We really appreciate you being here today. Tell your friends about Jamie's new wonderful book. It could be anyone. Purchase it from your favorite independent bookstore. And we hope to be seeing you again soon. I also want to send a thank you out to Nick, who is behind the scenes making Jamie and I look good. A big thank you to him for keeping the train on times here. So thank you, everybody. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.